I'm going to break it down into a couple of different sections. And at the end, if you have any questions, I'll be here. So I'll try to make this portion as quick as I can so that there's a lot of time for all your questions. All right, so, all right. All right, so here are our options. We have voter options, absentee, early voting, and election day voting. In New York State, we have more options and flexibility than ever before. We have these options: absentee ballots, early voting, and election day. Absentee ballots are our vote by mail, early voting and election day are when voters vote in person. Going out today, this is going out in today's mail. This is a card that all registered voters in Ulster County will be in receipt of. And I wanted to show this as an example because you will be getting this in the mail in the next week or so. It is something that Governor Cuomo mandated in an executive order a few weeks ago. He said to us, you have to have it out by this week. So here it is. So it's two sides. The first side is going to say exactly what you see here. Election day, November 3rd, 2020. Our polls are open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then it will say where your specific poll site is for election day. Voters have to go to their specific poll site if they choose to vote on election day. Then below that will be a listing of our early voting locations and their addresses and the dates and the times. So that's on one side. That'll be on the side where the voters' information, I blocked that out because this was actually someone's voter card. On the back of that card that you're all going to get, it will explain all of your options, and we'll go into detail about absentee voting because it's something that a lot of voters want to do, but they've never done before. So look out for this. It's going to be a handy thing for you to have. Really quickly, no, I don't see it. Never mind. Just kidding. So this will be in your mailboxes soon. It's something you can hold on to, but it's on its way. So essentially what I'm going to talk about is everything that is also on this card. So let's talk about the three different kinds of voting that we have and why some people find that it's a good fit for them and why some people don't want to vote that way. So for absentee voting, there's been more of an emphasis on vote by mail due to the pandemic and COVID-19 concerns, and it's greatly expanded the amount of people that want to vote this way. We don't have vote by mail in New York State. Vote by mail means people automatically get a ballot. In New York State, we have absentee ballots. It's the same thing. They come in the mail, but it's referred to by us as absentee ballots. Absentee ballots are really good for being socially distant. It comes to your house, you interact with the ballot, you send it back. So it's really good for people that are high risk voters who have health issues, who if they got COVID, it would be a bad situation for them. So absentee voting is really good for people in that situation. It's also good for those who are absent from the county. They're unavoidably away from Ulster County. They can't vote in person, so they have to vote by absentee ballot. Absentee balloting is also very accessible. It comes to your house, it comes to your mailbox, and it's right there. You don't have to do much of anything, just wait for the mail to come. And it also is the earliest voting that we ever have. It's earlier than even early voting. Absentee ballots will be out in the mail next week for voters. There are downsides to it. One of the biggest downsides this year is that the system that we have, the election administration system, was not built to have every voter vote this way. It would be impossible for us to have 100% of our voters vote by absentee ballot this year. So we really are conscious of that in the office, and across the state, everybody is bringing in help and part-time work, and we've all started working mandated overtime and weekends because we're constantly trying to get as many of these processed because it's an involved process with checks and balances. Another con to absentee voting is that in New York State, these results are not tabulated with your election night totals. So if you vote by absentee, your vote is not going to be a part of the election night returns. It's going to get counted, but you're not going to be a part of the election night totals. It's been reported in the news, and most recently in New York City in their primary, that absentees are susceptible to challenges by especially when there's close contests. So there's a risk that your ballot could be challenged. The state has taken proactive steps to mitigate those risks. And it's really, voters can make a lot of mistakes. They are doing it at their home. There's no election staff or personnel right next to them showing them how to do it all. So that's why that's our job to explain to people how to do it. And we've taken proactive steps, which I'll show you when we get to the absentee section of this program. Again, there's no immediate support if a voter makes an error. They have to obtain a new ballot, and because it is through the mail, that is time intensive. And of course, there is the slowness of the post office, which has been also heavily reported, and it's something that we're doing everything we need to manage that slowness, but it is a factor that absentee voters have to be mindful of, and they have to be conscious of the deadlines that are imposed on voters that vote this way. We have early voting. Early voting was introduced last year. It is a new way in New York State, but it's been around in a lot of states for quite some time. So we have taken a lot of the good things that work in other states and implemented them into our early voting program. It's exactly like a traditional election day experience, except it's elongated. So it's 9 days before election day. For this election, it will start on Saturday, October 24th, and it will end after the 9 days on Sunday, November 1st. The pros of voting early is that your vote is cast on the voting system. So once it's in the ballot box, it cannot be challenged. At early voting sites, it's been our experience that there are smaller crowds and there are shorter wait times. And that's because of the nature of early voting. It's not just one day, it's those 9 days, and it's a lot more time for people to go and cast their ballot. We have an open site plan in Ulster County. So that means of our 5 early voting sites, any voter can go to any of those sites. They're not assigned to an early voting site. They have the option. So that's the location choice is up to the voter, which offers them more flexibility. There is staff that works early voting, just like on election day, and they're there to help voters if they have an issue or if they have a question. The downsides to early voting is that it can be confusing for people when the hours are, because they do vary from day to day, which is why it's going to be important for people to have the card that we're sending, because the schedule will be referenced on there, but we also have it on our website for easy reference. And of course, I think that we are limited to the number of sites that we have. The state mandates that Ulster County has 2 sites. We have 5. We had 7 last year. I wish that we had 7 this year, but it takes 2 commissioners to agree. So we have 5. And that is unfortunate because we have the capacity to have more, but we are limited by the number of sites that we have. Then we have election day. This is on Tuesday, November 3rd, again from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Polls will be open all over the county. There are over 80 poll sites. We have 83 poll sites, and those are localized to people's neighborhoods. And voters are required to vote at their assigned poll site. Again, on that card, it will reference your poll site. So in Ulster, I've only had 1 poll site change in the town of Rochester. Otherwise, everybody is voting at their regular poll site if they choose to vote this day. It's the poll site that you always go to. There's pros to election day voting. Just like with early voting, it's cast on the voting system. It's in the ballot box, no challenge. It's in your neighborhood. So for a lot of people, this is the closest poll site to them, but they do have to wait for election day for that. And again, the poll workers are on site to help the voter if they have any issues. The cons of election day voting, especially in presidential years, is that there's a higher probability and possibility of lines and longer wait times. Options are limited for voters who have problems. If they're not in the poll book, they will have to vote by an affidavit or provisional ballot or seek a court order. This is the last day for voting. If they have an issue, they have to figure it out that day. They don't have the luxury of time because that is election day. And COVID, because there are bigger crowds, there's a higher risk of the potential for that to occur, which we're doing everything we can to stop it in the form of PPE and safety precautions, but with more people, there's more risk. So now I'm going to drill down for each part and each kind of voting. So let's talk about absentees. First, to get an absentee, you have to ask for one. Voters have to ask to get an absentee ballot. Again, it's not going to be automatically sent to voters. They have to give a reason. There are prescribed reasons in the state for asking for an absentee ballot. And once they do that, that request gets taken into our office, it gets processed, and the voter is on file to get an absentee ballot in the mail. There are more ways to ask for an absentee ballot now, and the state has made it a lot easier this year to make that request. Back in the day, you had to fill out a paper application and mail it in. That was your only option. Well, we've launched a web portal so people can request this on the internet. I'll show you that in a little bit, but the link to that is right there. They can send an email to our office, give their name, where they live, the reason why they need an absentee ballot, and they would email us at absentees@co.ulster.ny.us. People can call our office on the phone and request their ballot over the phone. We're open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. For those who have a fax machine, they could fax it in, or they could come to the Board of Elections or mail in that traditional paper application. The governor has eliminated people's need to sign their application. So that's why we're empowered to have the web portal, the email, the phone calls. We don't need an original signature. That is new for us this year. So it's a lot easier for people to ask for it. And we have seen a huge rise in the amount of requests, and a lot of them are coming through the new web portal, which they just launched last week, but it's very user friendly and people are having a good experience with it. So that is how you ask. You have these options to ask. Let's talk about the reasons for a little while. Voters have to give a reason to vote by absentee. It is a requirement under New York State election law. For COVID, the reason temporary illness has been expanded to cover not just people who have COVID or who are dealing with COVID, but for people who are concerned about contracting the virus. And so it includes the possibility of, and that is what most of our requests right now for people that want to vote by absentee, it's because of COVID and they're using this reason of temporary illness. If you apply through the web portal, there will be a place for you to give your reason, and it says for COVID, this is the reason that you choose. So essentially, because anybody can ask for it because of the potential to get COVID, it essentially means that anybody can get an absentee ballot. There are no restrictions. Anybody can ask to vote this way. We have some special applications. A lot of it probably doesn't apply to the people on this call, but you might know somebody who it applies to. We afford military and overseas voters absentee ballots. We have bilingual applications for those who speak Spanish. We have that on our website. We have accessible applications for people who need to vote using, maybe they're blind or they have a disability. We have accessible applications for voters. They will then get an accessible ballot, much like they would get the opportunity to vote at a poll site. So we have that ability to have voters vote this way if that is their need base. Election inspectors and poll workers also vote by absentee ballot. We have voters with religious scruples who their poll site is a church. Well, they don't want to vote there, so they could vote by absentee too. Victims of domestic violence, and for people who move to Ulster County within the 30 days, the 30-day time limit for establishing residency, they can vote for president only, and we will have, I'm sure, some people who have this issue. So there's some special applications if you know anybody that needs to vote because they have a special need. We have deadlines, and the deadlines are really important to be conscious of. Voters have to apply or postmark their application or submit it online on or before October 27th if they're going to request that we mail them a ballot. After that, voters can continue to apply for absentees in person at our office through the close of business day, the day before the election on Monday, November 2nd. People can file an application at any time before all of the deadlines, but we are not going to be mailing out ballots until next Friday. Be aware, though, we have been advised by the post office that they cannot guarantee timely delivery for ballots that are applied for less than 15 days before an election. They have advised us of that. They're also putting out their own messaging. We heard today that people are getting cards in the mail from the post office, just solidifying this issue that they're having. So of course, October 5th, the 27th is a week before the election. They're thinking a week before that. So if people are deciding that they want to do this, they have to really start to get those into the office so that we can process them and get them on the list. So that's how to get it. Now, what do you see when you get an absentee ballot? You should expect to receive a ballot package. There's a bunch of envelopes and the ballot, and I'm going to show you exactly what those pieces look like if you apply for and get an absentee ballot mailed to you. This is what you'll see. So this will be the package. This is what will be mailed to you. It will say official election mail. That's the indicia for election mail. It'll have a label in here with your name on it. It will say official absentee ballot. It will have our logo on it and our address. So that'll be the front of the envelope that you'll get. On the back of it are some instructions, how to return your ballot, how to contact the office, go on our website, and how to get it back in the mail. So right off the bat, you get the package in the mail and we start to tell you how to interact with the ballot. Once you open it up, you will see that you have your ballot, and the ballot is going to look like a voting system ballot. So if you've ever voted in person in New York State, you're used to seeing exactly this. This is what our ballots look like. So you will be asked to fill in your ballot. This is what you'll see, review your ballot. It's really important to check out the top of it. It'll have all of your contests and the parties will go down the side. This is a primary ballot, but this is what a ballot will look like. Don't forget to review both sides of your ballot because you might have a proposition on the back, and then there will be some language about how this is an official absentee ballot. The reason it's going to look like this is because the Board of Elections is scanning our ballots now instead of hand counting them. So that's why it looks just like a voting system ballot. Also included, so before we go on, let's talk about how to fill out the ballot once you get it at your house. Don't forget to review it carefully. Again, flip it over, make sure if you have a ballot question that you see that that's on there. Mark the ovals like you would at the poll site. So you're going to color in the ovals like a Scantron test. If you want to do a write-in, there will be a place for you to do a write-in all the way at the bottom of the column for the contest. So if you're going to do a write-in, that's where you do it. You don't just put it anywhere on the ballot. You have to put it in the write-in box. Don't write anything outside of the write-in box. Nothing. Don't write your name. Don't circle the contest. Don't cross out any printed tests. Don't even test the pen on the paper to make sure that your pen is working. Those can be used to challenge your ballot once we open it, and they call those identifying marks. So all you're doing on the ballot is marking who you want to vote for.
Or in person.
Oops. If you make a mistake and you need to redo your ballot, you're going to need to call the Board of Elections as soon as possible so that we can get you a new ballot. Don't try to fix a mistake on your ballot because you will take away your own vote. Don't write a note explaining the mistake on the ballot or cross it out and initial it. That will be construed as an identifying mark and your ballot will be thrown out when we go to count it. So don't do that. If you make a mistake on your ballot, you're going to have to get a new one. We will supply it to you. We'll get it to you as fast as we can, or you can come and get it from us right at the office. So that's how to do the ballot. Once you're done with your ballot, you're going to put it into an envelope. This is your oath envelope. Much like when you go to vote in person and you sign in the poll book, you have to sign off that you voted your absentee ballot. So what you'll see is exactly this. This is your ballot envelope, and it will say this right on there. It will give you all of the instructions, just like what I went through. On here will be Board of Election use only. this will be a label will be affixed to this so that it will say your name so that you know that that is your ballot and put your ballot inside of that envelope. On the back of the envelope will be where you sign. Do not put anything inside of this ballot or inside of this envelope but the ballot. And then you have to sign and date and seal it. So we're making it especially clear for this election how to do it. This is all brand new envelope design for us, and it's a lot more, it has a lot more clarity than ever before. So this is where you'll sign. So you'll see signature or mark a voter, and that is where you'll sign and where you'll date. That package will go inside of the return envelope. You'll know it's the one to come back to the Board of Elections because it will have our address pre-printed on it and it will say return envelope. You will have to put a stamp on it. It is not postage paid. On the back of that return envelope, there's a nice checklist so that you can make sure that you did all of the steps. And then it will remind you that this ballot has to be back at the Board of Elections if you're going to hand it in person by 9 p.m. on the close of Election Day or postmarked by Election Day. Just to reiterate, to complete your return package, do not forget to sign and date your oath envelope in the designated area. Put your ballot into the correct envelope. Seal your envelope. Make sure that you seal your envelope. Put your oath envelope into the return envelope and put on the postage. One stamp will do it. A forever stamp will cover the whole weight of the package that has been verified and tested by the State Board of Elections. Don't sign someone else's envelope by accident. We have had instances where a husband and wife accidentally sign each other's oath envelopes, and then both of their absentee ballots were challenged. Don't worry about the witness statement on the oath envelope. That is only for voters who are unable to sign their own name due to disability or literacy issues. The witness is only required for marks, not signatures. Don't alter the label on the oath envelope that the Board of Elections has put on there with your information. Leave that alone. If there's an issue with that label and your name is misspelled or your address is different, you're going to call the Board of Elections. You're not going to change it on that label. If you make a mistake on any of these pieces, again, you're going to call the office right away so that you can get a new package and we can fix whatever issues that you had. That's part of our corrective measures. The biggest thing to remember is November 3rd is the last day to postmark your ballot or deliver your ballot in person. So be very mindful. This is it. This is the last day for an absentee ballot to make its way to the Board of Elections. We have in-person delivery options. There will be boxes at all of our early voting sites, at our office, as well as all of our poll sites on Election Day. You won't have to wait in line. It will be in the site. However, it won't be outside. You will have to step inside of the site, but you won't have to interact with anybody and you'll be able to deposit it into one of those boxes. At the Board of Elections, that's our first area that will be open in our timeline for delivering your ballot in person. You can bring that to us during our regular business hours. Again, we're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but we will have extended hours throughout October that we'll be posting and promoting. Our early voting sites, those 5 early voting sites, also functions as extensions of the board and can receive absentee ballots. Again, there will be a box there for absentee ballots to go inside of. And our Election Day sites, all 83 of our sites function again as extensions of the board and can receive absentee ballots, but they have to be there no later than 9 p.m. That's when the polls close. They have to be there beforehand. Anyone can drop off ballots at any of those locations in Ulster County. You don't have to drop it off at your specific poll site. You can, but it's not a requirement. And anybody can drop off anybody else's ballot. So if somebody gives you the ballots for their family, you can take their ballots and hand deliver them. That is okay. There's no check-in process. It's literally just depositing it into the receptacle. A lot of people want to know what the status of their ballot is. So we have a tracker on our website, and voters can track the status of their request, and they can track the status of the ballot when it comes back. So you'll see if you've applied for it and we've gotten to your application, it'll say an application exists on file for this record. Once we have the ballots out and you vote and send your ballot back, we'll record when it comes back. And when you look yourself up, it'll say a ballot is in the office that for you for your vote. So I'll show you when I'm going to do a little tour of our website where this is exactly found, but its handle is voteulster.com/absentee status, or you can click on the link that is right on our main homepage that says find out the status of your absentee ballot request. There is a downside to and a gap in this tracking. We don't have Postal Service tracking numbers for our absentee ballots. So there will be portions of time when the ballot is sent and when you send it back to us, when that's in the care and custody of the post office, and we won't know its exact location. So while it's outgoing and coming back, that's when there is a lag time. That's when the post office is doing their job to get those ballots back to us or out to you to vote. So let's talk about voting in person. We have early voting. Here's a copy of our early voting schedule. Again, that starts on Saturday, October 24th. It encompasses 2 weekends. So we have Saturday the 24th, Sunday the 25th, Saturday the 31st, Sunday the 1st. For our weekend hours, those are 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. During the week in between, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, our hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on Tuesday and Thursday, it is from 12 to 8 p.m. Here are our locations for our early voting sites. We have a site in Woodstock at the Community Center, a site in Kingston at the Midtown Neighborhood Center, in New Paltz at the New Paltz Community Center, in Lloyd at the Highland American Legion, and in Ellenville at the Ellenville Public Library. If you choose to vote on election day, again, you must go to your local poll site. This means that the site that you're used to going to. If you don't know your site, it will be on the card you'll get in the mail, or you can use our polling place lookup tool that is on our website. So what does in-person voting look like? It's this voting early is the same as voting on election day. Again, when you go to an early voting center, you'll check in on the poll pad. It's an iPad where you'll be checking on, and then you'll get a ballot to go and vote and cast. There will be instructions available at all of our early voting centers, as well as our election day poll sites, to familiarize yourself with the ballot. There's a notice to voters and Bill of Rights, so voters know all of their options. And you can always ask an election inspector for help if you need assistance. If you vote during the early voting period, you're not eligible to vote again on Tuesday, November 3rd. You've already voted. Your vote is in the voting system. Early voting and election day results will be canvassed and reported on Tuesday, November 3rd, starting after 9 o'clock when the polls close. We'll put up the early voting results, and then as the results come in from every poll site in the county, we will add those to the running tally, and that will be published on our website. So with COVID, we have a lot of proactive precautions that we've taken to ensure that all of our voters have a safe experience and that all of the inspectors that are working for us also have safety. And that includes a training that we're doing with our inspectors, social distancing measures, and personal protective equipment. So what does it look like? If you voted in the primary in June, it will look just like that if you voted in person. We already have tested the safety plan and we found that it was very effective. When you go into a poll site, voters are, before you even go in the site, you are greeted by signage informing you that masks are required upon entry and social distancing has to be adhered to. Voters entering the site, once you're in the site, you will be greeted by a PPE station, which will instruct you to sanitize your hands, put on a pair of disposable gloves, and if you didn't bring a mask or if you don't have one, we will have masks supplied to voters who don't have a mask. Then the voter approaches the sign-in table where the election inspectors are stationed. They're also required to wear masks and we give them face shields as well. You will then sign the poll pad and you will be issued a ballot. After you're issued the ballot, you'll go over to the privacy booth area, and those inspectors at the sign-in table will be disinfecting their station once you leave. Voters then will engage with their ballot, and they'll approach the voting system casting their ballot and giving the materials, the pen and the ballot marker, to those inspectors. There will be something for you to put it into, and they will then sanitize those supplies. Once you leave, you're instructed to take your gloves. There will be a receptacle, a trash can to put your gloves in, and you are given hand sanitizer upon exit so that you can cleanse your hands. That is our safety process. It was very effective in June. We have all the equipment that we need, so we're very happy to have in-person voting that we think is safe. It's safer than going to the grocery store, and luckily no one contracted the virus in June, and we're doing our best to make sure that that doesn't happen in November. So this is a question that we get a lot: what to expect once the polls are closed and the results are coming in. With a higher percentage of absentee ballot requests, there is a very likely scenario that all of our contests, or at least some of our contests, will be undetermined on election night, meaning that there's more absentee ballots than the difference between candidate A and candidate B. So because of this, this is not something that we're very used to. Of course, there's been close elections before, but maybe not to this extent, where on election night, someone wins, but because of the amount of absentees, it's likely that they will lose once they're all counted. So we're trying to give voters the expectation that we're not maybe going to know who wins on election night, but we want voters to have the confidence to know that the processes that we take will make sure that the election is accurate and that it has integrity. So why do we do that? New York State election law mandates that myself, my Republican counterpart, and all of our contemporaries around the state perform a vigorous series of checks and balances to ensure that that integrity is maintained. Because we've made it easier for people to vote around the state, that does take a longer time. And it takes the better part of a week to compile all of our lists and share that with all of our partners, which means that we can't start counting absentee ballots any sooner than November 10th. Luckily, in Ulster County, we've invested in new technology to count the absentee ballots more quickly and more accurately than we ever have before. And we expect that that will help us with the higher volume of absentee ballots and the potential scrutiny of these ballots so that we can make sure that people's votes are not being tossed out. So barring any close races where candidates and lawyers come in to look through everything with a fine-tooth comb, we should be done by Thanksgiving. It will be something that I will be very thankful for if we're done by Thanksgiving. We have to certify the presidential election by December 7th so that the electors can come together for New York State and determine who New York State has voted for president. So we do have deadlines, especially for the presidential election, but it may take us a bit longer. Again, we can't count until November 10th, but because of our new technology, we should be done quicker than hand counting it, which has been our practice in the past. So that's the end of this visual tour. Right now, I'm just going to quickly walk everyone through what our website looks like. So if you're home and you go to voteulster.com, you will be directed to the website of the Ulster County Board of Elections. And this is what it looks like. This is live. So this is our website as it is right now. We have our early voting schedule, and we also have these buttons up top for early voting, voter registration, absentee ballots, and our results page. If you're running for office, you have candidate info, there's voter info, and we have an FAQ page. So let's just tour really quickly. We'll go to early voting. Right here on the early voting site, you'll see our schedule again, as well as our map, and then some of our FAQs that are specific to early voting. If we go back here, we have an absentee ballot page. that is accessible on our homepage or on this button. Our absentee ballot page, that button will bring you right to the web portal. This is the web portal. If you're going to apply through the web portal, you'll have to choose your county, put in your information, and it will take you to the next screen so that you can check your status. I've already done it just to test it. So if you've already done it, you'll see this note. Thank you for applying. But if you're fresh to it, it'll ask you all of the questions so that you can apply right online. On our absentee ballot page, there is all of the options for requesting your absentee ballot. If you're going to do it by email or letter, we tell you exactly what to inform us of: your name, date of birth, the address where you're registered, where you want your ballot sent, and your reason for your request. All of our deadlines are explained, also how to vote the ballot. We'll be putting more materials on here, video on how to actually fill out the ballot, and also all of our eligibility requirements. So we have done a lot to make sure that our website is user-friendly for our voters so that you can come here and have a one-stop shop. Here is the status of the absentee ballot request. If you click on that, this is what you'll see: absentee status check. So you would just enter in all of those fields, look yourself up, and it'll show you where your absentee ballot is in that process. We have our calendar of events, results, legal notices, absentee ballots. Again, we put it in a bunch of places. If you want to look up your poll site, you would come here, look up your poll site, show you what it looks like. I'll put my poll site in. It'll show you your poll site. You can even see a little picture of it. All of the information on your jurisdictions. And when we have sample ballots ready, you will be able to view them here. So that is our website. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think that I'm ready to take any questions.
I've been monitoring. You can hear me okay? Yes?
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay, because this gets, okay, I've been monitoring the questions and I'm going to read off them. Right now we have 4, but I see a hand up. But the one thing I wanted to say before which was my question, but I happen to know that I was on Facebook after the primary and someone was griping that the person who was the poll watcher didn't have a mask on, yada, yada, yada. And you nicely said, contact us. And I thought maybe you could talk about if you come into the poll and protocol doesn't seem to be being followed, what should people do?
So the masks are not an option for the poll workers. They have to wear them. It is part of the county protocol. You have to have your mask on during your work time. So we did have some reporting of that on primary day, and those inspectors are addressed immediately and reminded that this is not optional. It is a requirement for them to work. We take it very seriously, and for those who were not adhering, they were talked to by either myself or Commissioner Turco and reminded that it's not an option. You have to do it. It's for the safety and security of everybody who's voting. It's not a personal choice. It's part of their job. If you see that, we are not everywhere. We are running around everywhere that day, but you have to call the office and let us know. And poll watchers will be working, I'm sure, to help monitor the sites, and they will be letting us know, but voters should also let us know. You're not being a busybody. You're helping us tremendously. The worst thing as an elections commissioner is finding out the day after the election that something was happening that shouldn't be happening. So I have all of the authority in the world on election day especially when it comes to the behavior of inspectors. Those are our employees, and we need to know. Don't feel like you're tattletaling. It is not. It is very important for people to let us know so that we can fix problems right then and there, and that they don't continue on. Because for those that told us about those issues, that's how we addressed it. We addressed it immediately, and everything goes back to the way it should. That goes for anything happening at the poll site that is irregular. People electioneering, people campaigning in the poll site, anything like that where it's, I don't, you might be like, well, I don't know if it's breaking the rules or not. You're not bothering us. You're helping us do our jobs. It's a huge effort to run elections. It's the biggest public facing event that the government holds is election day and all of the early voting days. And we're only so many of us that do this. So we rely on the voters to let us know if they see anything that makes them question what's going on.
Okay, perfect. And this is an easy yes or no question. Can you use your own pen at the polling site?
Not at the polling sites. At the polling sites, to mark the ballot, you were given a specific ballot marker. Those markers will be disinfected. We will have lots and lots and lots of them too. So that if you want to take it with you, you can, as far as I'm concerned. But we will be disinfecting all of the markers. We have to use those markers because the voting system, if you use your own pen, it could leave a streak, and then the system will not function, and we'll have to come out and clean it, and that could create lines and issues with the voting system. So unfortunately, you have to use the pen that we give you, but rest assured that it is being disinfected. I have more wipes than I know what to do with. So you can't use your own pen, but you can use your own pen if you do an absentee ballot. It's a little bit different. But when you go to vote in person, you have to use the marker that we give you.
Okay. Someone is asking, do you have enough poll watchers at this point?
I have too many poll watchers at this point. It's a good problem to have. Thanks to a lot of groups that have put out the call, we have had over 800 people contact our office interested in working the polls. I myself, on my side of the aisle, have only 150 spots to fill. And so I don't have enough spots for everybody that has asked to work. We will be training our inspectors with mostly virtual training. So I spent the better part of August filming training videos so that my inspectors can take their required classes from home. There will be some in-person training for brand new people, but I have more inspectors than I need. We'll be training extra people for backup inspectors. And also because we have that new virtual training, it's going to be a lot easier for me to fill in any last minute vacancies. I could ask somebody to watch the video the night before the election and have them work on election day. So I'm good on inspectors. Please stop asking to be one.
Perfect. Liz, Liz has a question. I'm not quite sure I understand. She said, when I went to check the status of my absentee ballot, I did not indicate I was going to get an absentee ballot. I don't know what that means. Can you unmute yourself?
It didn't indicate that I was eligible to get an absentee ballot.
When you went to do the web portal or when you looked up your status?
No, when I looked up my status.
It could be that we haven't gotten to your application yet. There is a backlog, and that's why we're working 10 hours a day and on the weekend. So we've got thousands to put on the system before we mail them out next week. So we're doing our best. So keep checking, or you can send me an email and I can look into it.
Okay.
Because it can be finicky. It's not the most perfect tool. You have to match exactly how your name is in our system, and that's not always the case, especially if you did your registration through the DMV and your name is long. I have a lot of voters whose first name is abbreviated to their initial, and they're having a hard time applying and looking themselves up. So we will help those special case voters, but it's more likely that we just haven't gotten to your application yet because it's a lot. We at most in a presidential year in 2016 had 8,000 absentee ballots. In June, I had 17,000. And right now we're already there and it's only September. So it's tremendous the amount of requests that we're dealing with right now.
Also, I had submitted, the application for the primary, and I had indicated I wanted a ballot also for the general election. So
Mhm.
wouldn't that show up on that little icon, that little red icon, the status that I was going to get an absentee ballot?
It should, because those have all been rolled over. If you asked for it
Yeah.
back in June, it should be on your record. So I'll have to look up and see what's going on with yours, because it should be
Okay.
on there.
Okay.
I'm going to keep this moving. There's two more questions that I have, and then I'll see if I missed one. One was, do you have to put the dates of when you're going to be, what is it? You put dates of how long you're
Absent?
going to, yeah, do you have to do that for the
No,
temporary illness?
No, not for temporary illness. You don't have to do that. That's only if you are saying that you're gone, that you're absent from election day. That's when the dates become impactful. But if you're just choosing temporary illness, you don't have to fill out those dates. It will not invalidate your request.
Okay, actually, there's two others. One is also, if you vote by absentee and then decide to vote on the day of election, is that legal?
In New York State, it is. You do not have, it's not committing a fraud if you do an absentee ballot, if you send one in and then you decide that you want to go and vote in person. We are allowed to do that in New York because we don't count the absentee ballots until a week after the election. So for anybody who casts an absentee ballot, it doesn't get counted until after we verify that you didn't vote in person. So we check through all of our poll book records. They're all electronic, so the process is a lot more efficient than ever before. We also check with all of the other counties in the state to make sure that nobody did a vote in person somewhere else who did an absentee with us. So you can do an absentee ballot and then go and vote in person. When you go to sign in, it will say absentee, but it will not prevent you from getting a ballot at the poll site. Once you sign in, we'll see that you did that and that you voted in person, and we will take the absentee ballot that you submitted out of contention for counting.
Okay, perfect. Carol, I don't understand your question. Carol Nolan, could you unmute yourself and ask your question? And I think that's probably the last one because we're kind of out of time unless someone has something totally urgent. So Carol, could you?
Sure.
Give us all-
I just now unmuted. So if one applies for an absentee ballot online, there's no need to have your signature on it. That doesn't cause any potential fraud problems?
No, the way that they have figured this out is because you sign your oath envelope when you get your ballot. That package that I showed earlier where you sign
Right.
the oath envelope, that is your signature. That is you verifying that you obtained and voted your absentee ballot lawfully. It is, at least in New York State, it is not a point of fraud. That has been figured out. That was something that they debated over the summer, and that was the conclusion that the state came to, is that that's how we're allowing this to happen, is you can apply online, but when you go to vote your ballot, you're signing, and that is where the signature comes in.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. This has been terrifically helpful, Ashley. I'm sure others agree. And I, at this point, would like to thank you. And if anyone wants to unmute themselves and thank Ashley yourselves, please feel free to do it.
Well, it was my pleasure. I'm just looking at the chat to see if I can answer any of these questions really fast.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. It was very helpful.
Thanks, Ashley.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
There are major improvements, that's for sure.
It's a lot better. It's, man, it's
Amazing.
wild.
Well, I'm going to give people an opportunity if they want to say a little bit more to Ashley, but to everyone else, I'm going to officially say thank you from Saugerties Democratic Committee. Thank you, Ashley. You're terrific. And I will not end this meeting until I see people leave.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
just going to quickly answer some of these questions. Mindy asked what percentage of voters voted early last year in Ulster County. It was just under 7%, which is 3 times as many as the average that was in New York State, which was a little bit over 1.5%. So we did well for early voting for our pilot year. We were second in the state per capita. So I think a lot more people are going to vote early, though. That's what they keep telling us when they call the office. We have enough poll workers. Someone who decides to vote in person, yes, that's legal. I touched upon that. Is it too late? We have enough poll workers. If you want to be a poll watcher, that is something that you can sign up with probably through your town committee. Your Saugerties Democratic Committee can plug you into being a poll watcher. Poll watchers do not work for the Board of Elections. They're not our employees, but they are very important to the integrity of the elections. They are assigned to monitor the sites by the political parties. They are there to help the voters if the inspectors are not doing their job adequately. Poll watchers are essential to the functioning of the elections. They're the ones that usually do tell us when the inspectors aren't wearing the mask, or if they're telling people that they can't vote affidavit, or they're telling somebody that they're in the wrong poll site and not helping them get to the right poll site. Poll watchers, if you want to be a poll worker, but you can't be because we don't have enough room, think about being a poll watcher instead. You don't have to be there all day. You could do it for part of the day. I know that the Democratic Committee at least is going to put in a lot of effort to having good poll watchers. We have our congressional district, which is, I know it's a high priority for the state Democratic Committee to have good poll watchers and NY19. So if you can't be a poll worker, maybe you could volunteer to be a poll watcher. Is there a need for drivers to pick up ballots from sites like nursing homes, assisted living facilities, or retirement communities? The Board of Elections performs a lot of work with the nursing homes, so we will be facilitating that as a government agency. So we don't need volunteers to help us with that. If anything, we'll be using some inspectors to help us with it. But we're in communication with the nursing homes right now, and we're going to help them get all of their residents voting by absentee if they want to vote that way. In-person accounts, correct. Then does that present a BOA problem? I think you mean when someone votes absentee and then they vote in person. It's not a problem. It's part of our job. We're very used to doing it. Should encourage people to take their early voting card to the election site. It can be scanned and makes the site go faster. Yes, George, it does. If you have your card, your mail check card, it does make the check-in process a bit faster, but it's not required. It is just a bonus feature that our equipment has. Do we need to fear violence at any of the voting sites? Is there a violence? If there is violence at one of the sites, is the sheriff prepared to intervene? Yes, shortly, yes, we do have a very good relationship with law enforcement. We only call on them when we need to. If there is violence at the poll site, we will shut down the poll site until the issue is cleared up. Luckily, that has never happened, but we are prepared for worst case scenarios. We go through that with our inspectors. You never know. It's something that we're conscious of, and we have a policy and different scenarios and action plans if anything bad were to happen. And I think that's all the questions that were in the chat. If anybody has any other questions, I'll stick around, but this was fun.
Excellent job.
Thank you. Good night.
Excellent job.
Excellent. So in the next couple of days, after I edit out anything that the little chatter or me screwing up the technology, I will post the YouTube and people can pass it along to friends who might have missed this, because this was an exceptionally helpful webinar as far as I'm concerned, because I got so many questions at the primary, and I can imagine there's just going to be so much more this time. So thank you again, everyone.